Do not let people think you do not belong. Because I promise you, once you sit at these tables, at these fancy places, with folks with fancy titles, and they got a big bank account, and you talk to them, and you go, oh, yeah, they ain't all that. This idea that somehow they are so special, they're so smart, they're so sophisticated, not really. They've been exposed. They've been given the confidence of feeling like they belong. But if you sit down and talk to them, turns out, they just folk.
Thanks for coming out tonight. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me.
Welcome in, everybody, to Uncle Jimmy's Podcast, Season 2, Episode 1. We have Thomas Carchidi. He's a retired law enforcement officer with over 15 years of law enforcement service. He has a bachelor's degree in forensic psychology, a master's degree in criminology. Right now, he's enrolled in his third year of law school, seeking a Juris Doctorate law degree. And his mom and dad came, and they made their trip from Italy and settled in New York City. Thomas, how you doing today, pal?
Jimmy, how are you, sir? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really greatly appreciate it, man. Really appreciate it.
We're so excited to have, after that long list that I just read of everything that you had, I forgot to tell people that you are an author. You're an author of a book called Life in Law Enforcement, a police memoir, Good, the Bad, the Corrupt. Going to get into the book, The Good, the Bad, and the Corrupt, later on in the interview. Take a minute, introduce yourself, where your mom and dad came from, where you're from in New York City. Let the listeners know a little bit about you.
Okay, great. Real quick, my mom and dad, my whole family is from Italy. My mom and dad were born in Calabria, Italy. They moved to America in the 50s. Their families knew each other. A small town, Gattanzato in Italy, they knew each other, and they just happened to move to the same place in Brooklyn.
Did they meet each other here or back home?
So they were young back then, so my parents didn't really know each other, but my parents' parents and my parents' grandparents, they all knew each other. It was a small little town in Sant'Andrea.
Have you ever been back there, where your mom and dad came from?
I have. Yeah,
beautiful.
Super beautiful, but just totally different. Like, I don't mean this negatively, positively, disparagingly. Like, it is what it is. Gattanzato, Sant'Andrea, where they were from, they weren't from the water. My parents had land. My parents' parents had land on the water, which is beautiful. Calabria, it's all built up now. I heard it's all casinos and restaurants and amazing. Back then, it was just land. They would go and they have olive fig trees and all. It's just a beautiful land. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of the sea because I mess it up. So I'm going to leave that alone. But it's right on the sea. Yeah, so they would go down there during the summers and spend time. But they really lived up in more of a mountainous type area, kind of like, I guess, what you would find similar to upstate New York, West Virginia, very, very rural.
Okay.
Small communities, not that many people.
Yeah.
And that's how they grew up. So I'm sure, when I talk to my parents, if you ever get a chance to talk to them, or to tell you, it was a huge culture shock. It was
when they came to the States, when they came to America.
100%.
Yeah.
The good thing they had going for them is so many of their own people. When I say their own people, people from Calabria, people from all over Italy, they came to New York and different parts of the country. Italian people were all over Brooklyn. They were all over Manhattan, certain parts, they were Queens. Yeah. So when they moved to Brooklyn, it was easier for them to become acclimated because they learned the American culture. They were around American people, but they were also around their own people to keep their identity, It's just such a great thing the way they came up.
It's unbelievable. So it sounds like when they did come to the country, they sort of surrounded themselves with people from back in the country, back from the home country in Italy, and Americans, and they adjusted. But it was a big culture shock, obviously, coming from Italy to the States. I can only imagine coming from the mountain areas. Then you get off and you're in New York City and you're looking around, probably like, hey, what is this place?
Yeah,
something like they've never seen before, probably.
100%. And within a couple of years, my father was drafted. He just got his citizenship. A couple of years later, he was drafted during the Vietnam War. He sustained an injury during training. He retired honorably. He left the military honorably, thank God. You're going from being a 16-year-old kid to working all day, going to night school, then getting drafted into the military, getting injured. Like, they didn't have it easy. My mom started working when she was 15 or 16. After school, she would run over and work for the phone company.
Oh, okay.
And she started off as an operator, rose up the ranks. My mom's a smart woman, and she retired as a manager. She has a great pension, thank God. She did well. My parents lived the American dream, but very tough, man. People today don't understand. I'm not going to get into politics, but
that's another episode we can get into further down the line.
that's another episode, whether you're
Yeah.
a leftist or right or on the right. My parents weren't given a damn thing. They weren't given nothing.
Yeah.
And they trust me, they worked for every penny.
And they came over here
So-
and they achieved the American dream. You know, two immigrants coming over, settled in New York City. You know, your mom going to work at 15, your dad, you know, how old was your dad? 16, 17 when he came? 15?
My dad was 16.
16,
My mom was 6.
you know?
They
6,
came at
yeah.
different times, yeah.
And then your dad's drafted into the military, you know?
Yes.
So
yes.
it's one of those where, and I had a guy on last night, we were talking about it. He was in the military and he said, you know, you think about our military, right? United States military. We're the only military where you can have, you know, you can have people from, you know, Mexico, you can have people from Asia, you can have people from, you know, Italy, people from all different countries, right? That represent our military, that come here and become citizens. But you go to Russia, they're all Russian. You know, we have such a melting pot of people when it comes to our military, you know, our fighting force, our men and women, which are the greatest in the world. But, you know, a big, you know, thanks to your dad for serving the country and obviously coming over here at a young age, you get to citizenship. And then next thing you know, it's like, you got to join the military. But it's guys like your dad and your mom that came over, right? That probably instilled in you the hard work to go to work every day, to pay the bills, to, you know, I know you're probably like me growing up. Your mom and dad probably worked so hard that the biggest thing was maybe at the end of the year would have enough, you know, a couple extra bucks to take the family on vacation, you know?
Exactly.
You know, and that was just, you know, like you said, the American dream. And I think a lot of people lose faith in that nowadays, the American dream, because, you know, like you said, a conversation for another day, everything's become political, you know.
Yeah.
But so what made you get into law enforcement?
The two things we were talking about, I was into so many different things when I was younger, but two things that I always loved, I was obsessed with martial art. You know, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And I always loved the police, the law enforcement thing. I don't know why. It was like, at the time, it was a calling. You know,
Yeah.
I always felt an interest for it. I always loved watching Miami Vice on whatever it was. I think it was Friday night. Yeah, watching all that, you know, all those police, I guess what they call police procedural shows. And,
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, I can tell you
just-
a quick story of me when I have a buddy of mine, George E. McMasters, who's from New Jersey, and we used to go back to New York City, and we used to go to the Yankee Stadium and see games. But one of the biggest things I always did when I was a kid, when I was in New York City, I always took a picture with a New York City cop. I
Nice.
love the cops. You know, I love the cops, and this was before 9/11. This was before, you know, they were, you know, everything that transpired on that day. But to me, where I come from in the city of Boston, law enforcement, you know, cops, firefighters, EMTs, you know, they do the jobs that, you know, a lot of people shy away from. You know, coming from a big city in New York, coming from a city here in Boston, there's crime, there's murders, there's everything you can think of. But these people, you know, firefighters rush in when everybody's running out. Cops are rushing in when people are, you know, running out. You know, you guys do, like you served, you know, you were in law enforcement, and you know, and I thank you for that, because there's not, you know, I think a lot of people now tend to see that go into law enforcement. Some of them are, you know, they do it for a paycheck. But it seems like you
100%.
loved the job. You know, you wanted to be a cop because you wanted to serve. You wanted to, you know, do the right thing.
I did, and we can get onto that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get, you know, when we get up there. So I know that you, why did you leave, you know, law enforcement?
So real quick, just to circle back.
Yeah.
I moved to Long Island with my parents when I was a kid, like 2 years old, Massachusetts, New York.
Yep.
Went to college, graduate school in New York, and then I moved to Maryland after college and graduate school, and I became a Baltimore City police officer, and I lateraled over to Montgomery County, Maryland, and retired out of there. Then I moved back home, and I worked in law enforcement for a while. I moved back home to be with my parents, because I'm an only child, and they were still in New York. So I moved back home, and I was able, thank goodness for thank God for my collective bargaining agreement, I was able to pretty much do whatever I wanted. Still working. I could still work. There was no salary cap, in other words. As long as I didn't work as a government municipality police officer again, I could pretty much whatever I want. So I went back into law enforcement. I was a New York State peace officer, and I worked at Seagate Police Department for a long time. And I was a supervisor there. I did training, general topics instructor, firearms instructor, and, you know, patrol, whatever. So
you did a little bit of everything over there, huh?
I did a little bit of everything. Yeah, plain clothes. Like, we did a lot. You know, it was like almost like a little village police department. The only difference is instead of getting paid by town or village, you get paid by a board.
Okay.
So they hired mostly retired NYPD guys. And
so it must have been a big difference going from Baltimore to the little town you were working in, huh?
so going from Baltimore to Montgomery County, or anywhere for that matter, it's night and day. Listen, when people say policing, that's an umbrella term. Okay, there's all different types of policing. Let's be honest. if you're Capitol Police, say, because there's a lot going on. You hear about the Capitol Police these days. If, say, for instance, you're a Capitol Police, your job is police, but it's very different. You're protecting our politicians, which is super important. That's your job, basically. So you have specific nuanced niche assignments in certain type of policing. When you're talking about Baltimore City Police, so you're talking about places like Chicago, St. Louis, New York City, NYPD in the 70s and 80s during crack and AIDS, you're talking about a different animal. You're talking about calls for service all night, nonstop. You're talking about insanity across the board from the minute you start to the minute you end. Yeah. It's still policing, but it's a different job per se.
And it must be tough, when you worked in Baltimore. One of the things people don't think of, you're down there in Baltimore and things that you're seeing, right? You've probably never seen that before in your life, whether it's crime, whether it's murders. And that must be so tough to forget, when you go home and it's like, well, what the fuck did I just see? You must see drugs, you must see shootings, you must see stabbings, you must see a lot of gangs down there, just different, a different beast, that a lot of people in Baltimore, it must be tough. Was it tough being a white guy, being a cop in Baltimore?
I'm going to tell you this. There's a lot that goes into that. I never had a problem. I'm going to tell you right now, I never had a problem being a white guy in Baltimore. Yeah. And I'll tell you why, because I'm a serious guy. I'm a super fun, outgoing, charismatic guy, and I have another side. I'm super alpha, super mentally and physically strong. I'm a New York guy. I was born in Brooklyn, grew up in Long Island, which Long Island is one of the best places in the world.
Beautiful out there, yeah.
Yeah, affluent. Listen, you're right next to Queens. You're right next to the city. I went to school in the city. I've seen a lot of roughneck stuff growing up. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. And even for a guy like me, Baltimore was a shock. You have, 15,000 row homes. You walk in a footbeat. You can't believe what you're seeing. The crime. It's like you live in some parts of Baltimore, it's like you're in a third world nation, really. Yeah. And people don't always know what that's about. When you're in America, some people are sheltered, and then you see this and you're like, this is really happening in America? It's eye-opening. It never bothered me. I was built for it, but listen, let's be honest, most people are not built for that, to do that job, especially in Baltimore. And like you said, was I okay with it? Yeah. I loved the excitement when I was younger. I couldn't do it anymore at this age. It's too much. Yeah. I had a friend, my friend Eddie. He was a Bronx guy, and he went to the police academy with me. And I remember one day I don't know if we were on a foot beat or in the academy. We were doing something. I remember he looked over to me, and we were in a horrible section. I think we were in East Baltimore. And he's like, Tom, I've seen a lot of crazy places. I'm from the Bronx, but this is too much. This is crazy. And
that's a kid coming from the Bronx that's probably seen it all. And now he's in Baltimore, and he's saying, hey, this is... it's a little different,
So that's Baltimore, my friend.
So like you said, I think a lot of the not problems, but I think one of the biggest things is that, like you said, you're in Baltimore, right? Go there every day, you see what it's like. But to an outsider, right? They hear Baltimore, they think of Camden Yards, they think of, they don't think of these places that do exist inside our country, where, like you said, 15,000 dilapidated row houses. And what are the people like that are in that area? Did you get along with them? Did you make any friends, not friends, but a working relationship with people down there? And how did the community receive you when you were in there, when you were down there?
So I actually did make friends, and I actually fit in, and I'll tell you why. I was a serious guy, especially at work, no nonsense, but everybody knew that I was an honest guy. I was never on the take. I didn't abuse my power, and I was fair. I was always fair, and I was always a good guy. Like, I always gave people a chance until they rubbed me the wrong way. I always kept my guard up. I was a good person, a God-fearing, good-hearted person. I did make friends in the community, and it's very difficult because Baltimore's a crazy place. I'm not going to get into, like I said, right or left politics, but what I will tell you is this. The people that are there, and it's not just Baltimore. This country is it's going insane. I don't know what's happening at this point. The country's always been built on corruption and nepotism. Not to this point. At least they tried to hide it back in the day.
Now they just put it in your face.
Now they just put it in your face. They don't give a shit. They don't give a damn. It's almost like they're entitled. And both sides.
Both sides, right, no doubt about it.
Both sides. But politicians in Baltimore, like I said, I'm not going to say left or right. The politicians, they're not really helping their people, in my opinion. They're gutting their people. They're just taking what they can get. It's just corruption up and down the line.
Yeah, they're lining their pockets while of their citizens are starving, and you don't think about it. Like, people don't think about it.
Right.
There are, like you said, Baltimore. How many people would you see down there probably that hadn't had a meal in a day? And you don't think of that.
A lot.
We live in America. We go to bed. We flick the light switch off, put the heat on when it's cold. We put the AC on when it's hot. We get a hot shower. We get food coming in. We go to the store and buy our food. But there are people in this country that do go to sleep hungry, and it's not because of, hey, you know what? They may be suffering from mental health. They may be suffering from drug addiction. They may be suffering because they can't get a job. Or there's some people out there, like you said, you're in Baltimore, and there's people that haven't had a meal. But here we are in the U.S. thinking that, hey, everything's fine. What would it take? Think about this question. What would it take for Baltimore, right, to build itself up? What would you have to do? Would you have to get rid of the corrupt politicians? What would you have to do?
Well, it's a mix of everything. When I say corrupt, I'm not only talking about the politicians and the police.
It's everybody.
Some of the people are jacked up too. And here's the problem. A lot of the people, not all of them, some of the people, I should say. And here's the problem. People like you and I go back and visit once a year. I go to Camden Yards, great. I go to the Inner Harbor, which now they're closing. They're literally closing the Inner Harbor, all the restaurants and everything, which is, you went for a good time.
And I heard that was beautiful down there. Now it's just falling apart.
It was great.
Yeah.
Right on the Chesapeake Bay. It was beautiful. You look out on the water. It was my favorite spot. I used to go down there at night when it was on the rare occasion when it was quiet. I'd park my car next to the National Aquarium and I'd just look out at the lights and the water. It was gorgeous. Yeah. The problem is people like us go and we see a block or two and that's all we see. We don't see Monument Street, Madison Street, the most violent, dangerous streets in America. We don't see 80% of the city, 90% of the city that's in disarray. It's a tough place to live, and there's not so much infrastructure and opportunity there. I don't believe, at least when I was there wasn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a whole nother, that really needs to be looked into. I can't even, people need an opportunity to be educated. People need an opportunity to work. They need an opportunity to feel good about themselves. And if you're just going through systematic violence and drug use and drug selling, that's all you know. No father in the house.
They don't know any better. That's all they know.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. The father's dead or in jail or selling drugs. They don't know. That's what they know. That's what they see. It's systematic, and it's very, very sad because people like me, I'm given every opportunity.
Exactly.
I was given every opportunity.
Same here. Yeah.
Some people in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, like we said, Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, some places in New York, they're not given that. It turns into a disaster.
I can tell, Thomas, just in your voice alone, how much you still care about Baltimore. I can hear it in your voice where it's like, it's almost tearing you apart, because I think with you being down there and having these relationships with, the citizens down there, where you would hope that, hey, someday we'll get this shit together and they'll get their shit together and, Baltimore could become a great place. But due to so much that's going on, whether it's the federal government, whether it's the local government, whether it's the drug dealing, it's a whole issue that unfortunately no one wants to put their minds to and solve, because almost chaos 100%. Chaos is what keeps people looking every which way instead of looking at what the problem is.
100%. And what's interesting about that, I wasn't down there too long because I did a couple of years and I transferred out to the county.
Yeah.
I went from one of the most violent places in the country to another Long Island, Montgomery County, suburb of DC, politicians, Supreme Court judges. Mike Tyson, I believe, had a house up in Potomac up there. Big bucks,
a little different way of life.
%, and I hated it, but that's a whole nother story. I'd rather be big city policing anytime, but it's very difficult. I don't know. I don't have the answers, man. I really don't.
Yeah, and I think it's tough because I don't think that nobody has the answers, but I think if we do some studies, look at it, see which ways these communities can be built up. Because like here in Dorchester where I live, it's a melting pot of everybody. You have these people, these developers, right, that come in and they're building, they're tearing down single family homes and putting up 4 or 5 units on one lot. Who's that benefiting? That's benefiting the developers. It's not benefiting the community. It's not benefiting people that live in the neighborhood. So it's tough. And so we're going to go on 9/11, 2001. Where were you when those planes struck the building?
I just want to circle back one second.
No problem at all,
get to that if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's what you just said is exact 100% correct. So like I said, I wasn't there that long. It was it made such an impression on me, such a part of my life. I loved it there. I seen so many amazing things. I learned so much. And like you said, I feel bad.
Yeah.
You feel bad for certain people because they don't have the opportunity that other people are afforded. And like you said, with the housing situation, right?
Yeah.
You were talking about ripping the housing down. They do that all the time in Baltimore. Oh, we're ripping down this project. We're ripping down this housing complex. oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But you're not fixing anything. You're just making one building and putting up another one. You're not fixing the economic problem. You're not fixing the education problem. You're not fixing the drug problem. You think they're tearing down these houses, but they're not getting rid of these people. They're humans. So you're just putting them from one building to the next, or maybe they're moving out to the county. Then what? Did you fix their problems? Do they have money? Do they have an education? Do they have health?
Exactly.
Insurance? Do they? So it's a big problem. Knock down all the buildings you want. It doesn't matter. You're not killing people. You're not killing these people. They're still there. You gotta find a solution.
Exactly. And like you said, that's happening down in Baltimore. It's happening here in Boston and Dorchester, where I live. Well, what about when developers come in, right, and they do these big projects, and who's making money? The only one that's making money are them. So why not attach a fee, or a small little fee that they pay per unit that could go to education, that could go to building up the local school in the area. Small things that actually, if you're willing and able to tear down a house and build up 5 units, right? You should be able to say, hey, let me take a couple bucks, let me put it towards the school, because if I build that school up and I build people up, their education, well then, I can tear down the next building and we can put up another school, or we can put up a local grocery store, or we can do things that let's start investing back into these communities where people are not just coming into the community to purge, and I don't mean purge by kill everybody off, but purge. They're purging the land. They're ripping down single family homes. They're taking away the whole identity of the neighborhoods, because now you have people that don't even know each other. That, here in Dorchester, where I live, right across the street, we have college kids moving in now and all that, and they want to party till 3, 4 in the morning. No, this is a neighborhood. We're not going to put up with that. Investing back into the community. That's what these developers should be doing, and people that do have money and that are making money off the community should be investing back into it. It's not hard.
Well, listen, 100%. And just in New York, like I said, I'm not going to per se get into politics.
Yeah.
But just in New York, the elections are here.
Massive.
Any minute, they could be voting in Mondami. And here's the thing. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care about any of that nonsense. Political affiliation.
Yeah.
He wants to go, they're going to go against, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but knocking down buildings, putting people in homes, he's going to give everyone that. He wants to give everyone that. He wants to make everything a socialist system. Everyone's going to be equal. We're all going to pay, if it was up to him, we'd pay 80% in our taxes. Yeah. And everybody would be the same. A doctor would be the same as someone that doesn't work. And everybody would be living in these buildings. So, listen, New York they're going to be there any minute if they vote this guy in. So, we're going to see it. We're going to see it soon, I think.
Yeah, and I think in politics aside, one of the things when it does come to politics is that a lot of people are looking at options. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I voted for Kamala Harris, which I proudly did because I'm a Democrat and I believe she aligned with what I believed in. But at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, whether my candidate won the election or not, especially on the national level, President Trump's still our commander-in-chief. He's still our president. That's what makes this country great. Democracy, elections. You still go overseas to some countries where females still can't vote. Females still can't drive cars. But over here, what we were based upon was, freedom. And the hottest part becomes, I think in New York City with Mondani, I haven't really looked at it. My brother's been telling me about it. But at what point can we just give away the farm and expect the country to keep on going?
Well, that's exactly, and they're not hiding it. It's not a secret. He's a socialist. This is what he believes in. So listen, if that's what the people of New York City want, like I said, I'm not going to get into politics.
Yeah.
God bless. But I think even people like you, when you say you're a Democrat, I think people like, my parents used to be
Kennedy Democrats. Yeah.
Kennedy Democrats. That's not what this is. They need to come up with another name because Mondami's not a Democrat.
And he's sure as hell not a Kennedy Democrat.
No. So, I can't. If that's what they want in New York City, I trust me, I'll never be moving into New York City. I'm good. I'll stay away.
Cycle forward now, 9/11, 2001, that infamous day. How old were you in 2001? I was in high school at the time, and I'll never forget. I was sitting in class, and we put the TV on, and we saw the second plane hitting the World Trade Center, and it was something that I'll never forget. It's burned into my memory. And one of the biggest things, right? And I'll let you answer the question, but I don't know if you remember this. I'll never forget, right? After 9/11, when George Bush is down on the pile, and you were down on the pile, and I don't know if you were there around those days, but George Bush is on the pile, and he got the bullhorn, and he's yelling, and he's talking, and people are yelling back to him, "We can't hear you," and he said, "These people that knock down these towers are going to hear from us," and the crowd goes crazy. But think about something like that, right? On 9/11, we're attacked by Muslim extremists. You go down there, right? Where were you on 9/11? Where were you?
That day, I believe I was 25 or 26.
Okay.
Right. So that day I was actually working. I was just finishing up. I finished up college. I was either in graduate school or just finishing graduate school or just finished graduate school. And I was working like higher end corporate security. And I remember I was driving to work, and then I got to work in the building in Long Island, and it was all over the news, and they closed up the place. Business was closed for the day, I believe. I left early, and I was, everybody was in shock. I was in shock like everybody else, and I remember watching it that day on television and just saying to myself, I got to help out. I got to volunteer down there. At the time, I was in between law enforcement jobs. I left the job with the federal government, and I was waiting to get on with Baltimore City. It was a Thursday night. I took the train into the Long Island Railroad into Penn Station, and then I took a subway into downtown, towards Vesey, I believe, and all those, the World Trade Center. And it stopped, I believe, about a mile short. Because you couldn't get down there. It was just a disaster. And I remember getting off the subway, and it was just pitch black, man. Like, it was insane. Like, New York City, the hustle and bustle. Forget about now. Before COVID, back in 2000, 2001, there was no city like New York City.
The city's alive. Yeah, it's alive. People are everywhere. Bro. There's music going. There's people having fun. Everything.
At 1 o'clock in the morning, the bars, the clubs, the restaurants, there's people everywhere.
They're just starting at 1 o'clock in New York City,
Yeah, they're just starting. Forget about 5 o'clock in the evening with the rush hour. Even at 1 o'clock in the morning back then, it was a madhouse, and it was so fun. And I'm walking down, I get off, and I'm walking down, it's desolate, it's dead. No one around, there's just dust everywhere, right? It's cloudy.
It must have been eerie.
Well,
eerie.
It was crazy. And then I see a police officer who's on that post. He's on a foot post, and I explained to him my situation. Listen, I'm previous law enforcement. I said, I got to get down there and help. So, thank God, he let me down. Yeah. It was great. I went down, I walked down, and it was complete chaos, man. I can't even explain it. It literally was like something out of a science fiction horror movie, like just crazy, like lights off. As you got closer and closer, you could hear the generators and you could see the light a little bit. Yeah. And as you get closer to the light, you see like the dust and the debris, and then you start to hear like voices ratcheting up. But for a while, it was eerie,
and probably the smells in the air of stuff still burnt. Like I can only imagine.
It's crazy, brother. I still don't like the smell of fire, campfire. I don't like it. It like triggers me. I don't like it.
Back
like when
to
I go to my place. Yeah, when I don't know. When I go to my place upstate, New York, make s'mores, whatever, we cook on the grill or the fire in the backyard, the fire pit, it triggers me a little bit. It just reminds me. And it was a crazy scene, man. Crazy.
So what was it like on the pile? Was it solemn? What was it like?
Really, when I went down there, it was only 2 days in. Okay. And it was still complete chaos. Like, it was just, there was no organization. There was people just running all around. There was really, at that point, it really wasn't organized. It was just, they were trying to control the chaos. Everybody was doing their own thing, trying to help. And I remember standing next to a DEA agent on top of the hill, on top of the structure. Yeah. And we could just see down into the building, where it used to be. And we just looked at each other and were like, holy smoke, like this is unbelievable. Like, this is crazy.
Well, and you grew up in the city, you that's something that you've seen every time you drive into the cities. You'd see the Twin Towers. I'll never forget the first time I ever saw them. I was down there with my friend Georgine, and I'll never forget. I think I had to walk probably 7, 8, maybe 10 New York City blocks to see the top of that building. That's how big it was. Yeah. Massive. The two of them. Yeah. And just a tough day. But, how long after that were you diagnosed with lymphoma? Stage 4.
I was diagnosed in 2023, April of 2023.
Okay.
And that was like, thank God I'm covered by I pulled through the grace of God. I give it 1%, my strength, because I'm super strong, and 99% the grace of God. And I thank my family, my mom and dad, my cousin Lisa. She's like my sister. She helped raise me, and she helped me through all this.
And you had stage 4, right?
I had stage 4 lymphoma cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. I had a tumor in my lymph node in my throat, left side, and I had a big back-breaking tumor on my T5 vertebrae.
Okay.
And it was breaking my back, so we had to deal with both at the same time. So a year and a half. When I tell you torture, like, I wouldn't wish this on anybody, bro. Chemo, radiation, surgery, spinal tap, minor surgeries, catheters, Bone punctures.
Everything.
What do they call that when the woman gets it's like a bone puncture? Spinal tap. Did I say that?
Your spinal tap.
I was in the hospital for 23 straight days with something called CAR T-cell therapy.
Okay.
Sick as a dog. You know, they got to break you down to build you back up.
Build you back up, yeah.
Yeah, thank God finally it worked out. But
now, what
and
hospital?
also-
What hospital did you go to? Was it in the city?
So yeah, I in my opinion they're the best. I went to Sloan Kettering. I think
Sloan
they're the best
Kettering,
in the
yeah,
country,
yeah.
best in the world. Memorial Sloan Kettering. Really great doctors. They're amazing. I'm also covered, thank God, by the 9/11 Commission,
9/11,
the health, the World Center Health Commission. They cover if I need any expenses.
So what was it like at Sloan Kettering? What for people that are listening, I like I said, I had Richard on last night who's a cancer survivor, and he was in a hospital in Tennessee. But for you being at Sloan Kettering, did it feel like right when you walked in that door, from the nurses to the people that greeted you to the doctors, top notch, the best?
So 100% top notch, the best. But with that said, it sucks, bro.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
It's you're not talking about skin cancer, which could be deadly, but
Yeah.
you're not talking about mild, stage 1 cancer. I had super aggressive. I thought I was done. Super aggressive cancer,
Yeah.
and it was just nothing but anxiety, depression, and you just got to be strong, and you gotta.
And do you think a
you just
lot of
gotta
your
push forward.
a lot of your training, with keeping your mind sharp with jiu-jitsu and all that stuff, just having a sharp mind kept you, alive almost, essentially, just to keep fighting.
It's almost hard to have a sharp mind at that point because of all the drugs you're getting that are being induced into your system, of everything you're going through. It's very hard to keep a sharp mind, but you just do the best you can. And I said I'm going to battle this. That's what I am. I'm a fighter, and if it's my time, it's my time. Great, God, please take me. Forgive me for my sins and please welcome me. But if it's not, let me get through this. I'm just going to keep fighting.
Exactly.
And that's what I did. And then one day, thank God, it just ended. And hopefully it doesn't come back, man. God willing, I'll live a long, healthy life.
Exactly. And we'll keep you, we'll definitely keep you in the prayers. A big shout out to the doctors, the nurses, and everyone at Sloan Kettering for everything that they do. Not just with you, Thomas, but for everybody.
100%.
You hear it all the time, Sloan Kettering. I think, you hear it in TV shows, you hear it in movies, but to hear your story of you going there, getting the treatment, the doctors being great, like you said, the reality of it is they can be great, they can do all that, but you're still going through it. Like my uncle, who I live with, had cancer, lung cancer, and we actually went in and they took out the top right lobe. And, through treatment, he's good. Tomorrow he has his, I think 6-month PET scan. So he's been great ever since they removed it. My dad died of cancer. My mom died of cancer. So I've seen it. And it takes so much out of you, mentally, physically, it just drains you. And then, like you said, all the drugs that are flowing through your body, what they put you through. And like you said, I think you broke it down the best was they break you down. They almost kill you just to build you back up, with the medicine. And by the grace of God and your strength, you're still here and sharing your story. And we appreciate that,
Well, real quick, I want to throw this in there because it helps me to remember it. It makes me feel good. I was in the hospital for 23 straight days, a hospital setting. First the hospital, then like a quasi-hospital, like almost like a housing put me in. 23 straight days, just so sick. And I remember they let me out on the 23rd day, and they took my catheter out. They cut my catheter out. I left around 3:30. 7:30 that night, I was at jiu-jitsu. So I was literally training jiu-jitsu that night because here's my thing. Listen, we're all going to go, right? If it's not your time, it's not your time. You keep doing as much as you can and give it up to God, and that's it.
No, that's
keep
awesome.
Fighting.
That's awesome that you went to training that night. Now, could you share some people people that do listen to the show, some are battling cancer. What are some words of encouragement you could send to them?
Honestly, I my biggest thing, and some people, I don't know, some people aren't religious. Some people they don't believe in it. That's what kept me afloat.
Your faith?
My faith, just trying to stay strong and saying, listen, I'm going to get over this and there'll be another day and I'll be able to do things. But honestly, without my faith, I don't think I would have anything.
So your faith kept you strong. Definitely.
Yeah.
So you are a black belt in jiu-jitsu, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your training?
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Have you ever had any fights? Have you fought at all or just sparring?
Do you mean in the gym or in the street?
No, we can't talk. I mean, in the
Yeah,
street,
yeah.
yeah, in the street. I mean, you've
Okay.
probably used it in the street. I mean, coming up in the city, and then you're in Baltimore. You know, you're everywhere, so you must have been.
Listen, I've competed in jiu-jitsu tournaments, submission tournaments. I used to
Yeah.
love that when I was young. I never competed in MMA. I was
Okay.
always busy with work, and I always trained in the gym with pro fighters, and I came up with amazing fighters.
Yeah.
I've had the blessing of training with literal amazing UFC, MMA guys. It's
Yeah. Now, what did you say?
been
You were
such a
in
journey.
submission tournaments?
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you were
like
younger.
grappling.
Yeah.
Grappling, jiu-jitsu based, or just submission wrestling tournaments. I used to love to compete in those.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've had some issues in the streets growing up and as a cop. So, I wasn't really sure what you meant by that.
No, and we don't
Yeah.
have to tell those stories. You know.
Yeah.
You know, we'll
Yeah.
we'll save that for later on. You know, so.
When we have a drink and some steak.
No doubt about it. Those,
Off the record.
Unfortunately for you guys on the podcast, Richard and I are going to meet up in the city, have a nice steak and some drinks. I'm going to get
Right.
to hear those stories. You're not, but,
Right.
and I won't tell you guys either because I can't wait to hear them, and I can't actually wait to meet Richard in the city. We're going to have a lot of fun. So now you're currently enrolled in law school. What made you decide to become a lawyer?
So when I was younger, I always wanted to go. When I was in college, I either wanted to become a policeman, police officer, work in law enforcement, or go to law school. I wound up working in law enforcement. I just didn't have time to go to law school too. Like so few people, if you always hear like, oh, there's so many lawyers, this, that, and the next. That may be true per se, but if you look at the percentage of people that actually become lawyers, it's like 0.04% or something, or 0.4%. I'm not 100% sure, but it's super, super low. And that's because it's super hard.
Yeah.
You have to have a high learning curve.
Now, how long does it take? Does it take 10 years? Right around 10 years?
Now you're talking about law school?
Yeah, law school.
So law school, if you go full time, what they call full time, it's 3 years on top of college.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're going to college for 4 years, then you go into law school for 3 years.
So 7 years.
But then you're studying for the bar too.
Yeah.
So you're talking about probably like 8 years, 4 years to finish everything in law school. Full-time law school is 3 years plus studying for the bar exam. Part-time, what they call part-time is what I'm doing, is 4 years, and then you study for the bar exam. Okay. So yeah, but it's not just like 4 years of high school or 4 years of college. It's the highest level. Like law school is really, when people, don't listen to people when they say people that, I know lawyers that aren't smart. Like, no, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
They might be off, ditzy, this, that, the next, book smart, but they're smart. You're not passing the bar exam if you're not smart. It's not happening. And if you don't study copious amounts of information.
Yeah, it's not like you can just
happen.
go in like when you're in high school and you can be like, all right, I got a test, let me get a 65 and I pass and I'm good to go. Law school, you gotta it's 4 years of learning and then applying it when it comes to the bar,
Yeah, 100%.
And like you said, it takes a smart person, someone that can read, someone that, comprehend, someone that can take all that information in, because I can only imagine what the bar is like when you take it. It must be tough.
It's brutal. It's brutal from what I've been looking at. And, I just wanted to just talk about my school real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my situation was unique because my cancer situation, whatever, everything I had going on, I couldn't go brick and mortar. Like the old days, you go sit in a class.
Yeah.
So I had to find a school that would accommodate me online. And when I started, there was very few to none law schools that were doing online learning.
Okay.
And California is one of the states that allows distance learning. And it was perfect because while I was, going through my trials and tribulations and whatever else I was going through in life, rehab, I was able to go to law school as well.
Wow. So when you were sick, you were still doing schooling?
I was sick, but I didn't realize it at first. And then I got diagnosed and I took some time off. And then I went back and I'm finishing up my 3rd year now. But the only way I could do that really was by taking an online law school course, and then to sit for the bar. I couldn't go like everybody else to a brick and mortar school where I wanted to go. So thank goodness for these people. Southern California Institute of Law, SEIL, they're amazing. The staff is amazing. I can't say enough good things about them. They help me through everything, my health situations. They understand, they're accommodating. Sometimes when one door closes, another one opens. And this was my opportunity to go to law school. This was my opportunity to sit for the bar exam if I wanted to become a licensed attorney. Now, this gives me the chance to graduate next year and say, I graduated law school. I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing. It really is. And, I want to thank the school and the staff for that. They're great. They're amazing.
Give them another shout out. What's the name of the school?
SCIL, Southern
SCIL.
California Institute of Law. And you can just go online and get the greatest people. You can contact Dean Pulley or Professor Fielden. She's a distance learning director. They'll tell you everything you want to know about the school, and it's perfect for people like me, like I said, that can't go brick and mortar.
Yeah.
They can't sit there for whatever reason, work,
Yeah.
children, sickness. They still afford you an opportunity to live out your life dream,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now we're going to get to the book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a Police Memoir, the good, the bad, the corrupt. The reviews online are saying it's a must read. It's an amazing book. What a career.
Thank you.
Excellent book. It's saying 5 out of 5 stars. You can find the book at bookbaby.com, amazon.com, and just about any online book distributor. Again, the name of the book is A Life in Law Enforcement, a Police Memoir, the good, the bad, the corrupt. So why the title of the book, A Life in Law Enforcement, a Police Memoir, the good, the bad, the corrupt? What's the name?
What you see in the book title is basically a microcosm of the book. It's the truth. It's gritty. It's crazy. 99% of people, I'm just throwing a number out, I'm guesstimating. Most people don't have a chance to wear a badge and work as a sworn law enforcement officer, right? They don't know what it's really like to work for the government, work for police. This book will explain it. Whatever time, if you're a police officer for a month or you're a police officer for 40 years, you have your own unique experiences. You see and witness things, and that can't be taken from you. And the truth is the truth. For every good thing I saw, I saw one or two bad things equal. It's just, if you read this book, let me put it this way. This book is really for anybody. I love for someone that wants to go into law enforcement, that's their goal, their aspiration, their dream. They say, I always wanted to be a cop, right? Read this book. Read it so you understand what it's really all about. You're not going in blind. You're not getting misconceptions. Read the book. See what it's about.
So you go into just about so it sounds like you go into just about everything. Everything.
I go into everything, and your mouth will drop when you read it. This will shed light. And if you still want to go into law enforcement after you read it, then great. God bless. We need good people in law enforcement. But here's the thing. One thing I made sure to do in this book, because we spoke about this off the phone. Yeah. We're knockaround guys. I'm not a rat. Say a rat. I use that word. That's a word we use around here. Your listeners understand what that means. I'm not looking to out anybody. I'm not looking to get anybody in trouble. I just wanted to tell a story. So what I did was, anybody that did good in the book, I got their permission and used their name. Anybody, can we curse on here or no?
Yeah, you can curse. Yeah.
If somebody fucked up and they're a scumbag, I changed their name. I changed pertinent details. You can find all that information. Just look at the citations in the back of the book.
Yeah.
Everything's documented. Police reports, witness statements, newspaper reports, media, court cases. Everything's documented. You have to find that on your own. That's public information. I put it in there so people know what I'm saying is legit and backed up. Truth. I change details and I change names because I'm not looking to specify, pick anyone out in particular and jam anyone up. That's not what I do. I just want people to understand an overall account of what goes on day to day in governmental law enforcement.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things with the book is, and people need to realize this is your story, right? This is your story. This is how you went in, you saw what was going on, the good, the bad, the corrupt. And cheers to you for someone that, a lot of people, how many guys do you think that you worked with in law enforcement that just went along to go along with it, that turned a blind eye to certain things that, you probably shouldn't have been turning a blind eye to.
Listen, Jimmy, I had a partner in Montgomery County. We drove one-man cars.
Okay.
So she was my B partner. She was the partner next to me. I was one Adam 4, I think. She was one Adam 3, one Edward 3. I forget exactly what the
call sign was.
The numbers were. Yeah, but we were next to each other, right? This officer, which I'm not going to name, it's super easy to find, but I worked with her on a daily basis. We went to calls together. We went to lunch together. We had no idea. No one. We knew something was up because she always had a lot of money. She was always going to the mall on her break and getting a nice bag and this and that, a big, fat, expensive ring, engagement ring, but we didn't know what the hell was up. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
Because we weren't involved. I didn't get no business like that. It wasn't family. I mind my own business. This officer was using the police databases to get information for her drug dealing fiance, for people that were failing to pay her drug dealing boyfriend for drugs.
Wow.
And then they would go and do whatever they had to do to find them and extort the money, get the money.
That's crazy.
She was using police databases for her drug dealing boyfriend. Her boyfriend was transporting drugs. Other states. He's one of the biggest suppliers in the area. This is my partner. It's nuts what goes on. It's nuts.
Well, and think about this, right? For some people that may not, right? And you do because you've worked, the job. Think about this scenario, right? And it's only a scenario. Here she is, if something goes wrong, she's supposed to have your back. But here she is, fiance of a drug dealer she's in the database, getting people's names. They're probably roughing people up, getting money, extortion, otherwise. Imagine if you got a call to, hey, her boyfriend, her fiance's house, and there was a gun drawn, and who's she gonna take care of, her fiance or you? Who's she gonna take out?
Exactly.
She's gonna take you out.
Exactly.
And you're law enforcement. A lot of people have a blind eye to think that, hey, law enforcement, she would have my back. No, she would have taken you out in a heartbeat. It's
in a heartbeat, bro.
And to think that there's people that exist like that, that's not just stuff you see in movies and on TVs. That's shit that's happening in departments across this country.
Jimmy, here's the problem. Here's the thing. I got to be honest. I grew up with a certain element. I told you.
Yeah.
I'm off the boat.
Exactly.
My parents were off the boat. Excuse me. I'm from Brooklyn. I grew up around organized crime. I grew up around Italian mafia. I grew up around all these things. Gangs, this, that. Tough guys, badasses, right?
You've seen it all.
But here's the thing. This is the way we always viewed it growing up. You could be a gangster, or you could be a criminal gangster, or you could be a cop. If you're a gangster, listen, I respect it. The cops and the gangsters, they respected each other for the most part because we're doing a job, the cops are doing a job, and the gangsters were doing their thing, right?
Yeah.
It's our job to put you away, but this is what's not respected, and it never was. And these people are pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And I hate criminal cops,
it's
cops
crazy.
that are corrupt, nepotism, cops that are involved in nepotism, corruption, illegal bullshit. Those are so much worse than your average everyday criminal because they're using their power. They're violating their power. People trust them. And they're just literally, so to speak, abusing. They're abusing you, the public, and their power. And that is disgusting to me. That's disgusting.
No doubt about it. And that's one of the things that, like you said, you grew up, around, you grew up in a Italian community. You know some guys who know some guys that, are up to no good. But again, here you are, a sworn law enforcement officer, and the lady that's supposed to have your back, basically a drug kingpin, and what do when did you find out? Was it after she got arrested, or did you guys have like any inclination it was going on or anything?
We didn't find out until after she got locked up. The FBI, the Montgomery County Internal Affairs, I think maybe even Customs at that time, because she was doing stuff, I think, on the internet. I'm not 100% sure. They came and locked her up. And, that's just one instance. And like I said, there's a million good stories of cops. There's a million. So many good things. My book documents tremendous acts that cops and police, law enforcement have partaken in. But it also documents the truth. Like, for every good, there's a bad, and it's not what I thought it was going to be. And honestly, it's not what I want for my life anymore. Yeah. I don't want anything to do with that anymore. I'd rather do my own thing. And
no, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. It takes me back to, like you said, when you were growing up in in your community, and then, I don't know if you've ever seen A Bronx Tale.
Oh my gosh, I love that movie.
So when Robert De Niro says, "It don't take much strength to pull a trigger, but try and get up every morning, day after day, and work for a living."
He's right.
It's so right. But again, here you are, right? You've seen it all. You've seen the guys in the neighborhood, but you join law enforcement, right? And then you see it, you start, getting into the job. What was good about the job?
What was good about the job? The things I loved about the job, I loved saving people. I loved helping people, and I got the opportunity to not just help, but to save save lives. Like I literally saved multiple lives. Very gratifying for me.
Yeah.
I loved that part of it. More than most of what I saw. I loved some of the camaraderie. I loved some of my friends. You form such a tight bond with certain people
Yeah.
because of the things you face, you know, and you don't know if you're going to walk up to a car and, God forbid, get blasted. If a cop's going to get blasted, you don't know if you're going to go to a domestic violence call and get stabbed, hit over the head with a pan, or shot.
You never know
So
exactly.
you put your trust in certain people, and that's why it's really disheartening when they violate that trust. And it's at first it's heartbreaking, and then you just get angry. Yeah, there was a lot of good things. Some of the friendships, like I said, overall, the backstabbing, corruption, nepotism, too much, and everybody's out to get you. The media, you know, the brass are in their positions because the higher ups, the voted officials, put them in there. So they're gonna do the bidding of the people.
Yeah.
You screw up once, you're gone. You know, this thin blue line that they used to talk about, not really around anymore. It's around in certain few departments, but not like it used to be. The police did whatever the hell they wanted back in the day. Literally, everything's on media, everything's social media, news. Everybody has a cell phone. There's a camera in every corner.
Everywhere.
So any little thing you do, you're screwed. You know, prosecutors are coming for you, internal affairs, the bosses, the brass. That bullshit wasn't for me anymore. It wasn't for me anymore.
Well, and I think, you know, not that it's a good thing, but one of the things is in any job, right? Everybody wants to be held, you know, everybody should be held accountable, right? So you think about becoming a cop, right? And I circle back to the partner that you had, you know, that just blows my mind to think like that's some of the things that you see in movies. You don't think it happens, you know, but here you are, you're living proof of you were there, you saw it, you know. But I got a quick question, right? I don't know if you you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, and I don't know if you worked with them or knew.
I'm
of
not
them.
under oath. Are you sure?
No, you're not under oath. Now, did you work with Wayne Jenkins at all in Baltimore?
You want to hear something crazy? Yeah, he was there, bro. That's the gun trace task force, bro.
Yes. Did you work with him at all? Yeah.
I ran into him.
Yeah.
He was there. And the funny thing about it is I started working plain clothes at the station level, at the district level, central district. I was aggressive. I was a real go-getter. And they wanted young kids like me to go get stats. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Go get stats, make the department look good. And as soon as you fuck up, they throw you to the wolves.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that back then at the beginning. I learned quick, though. I started working plain clothes. They were grooming me to work for, operations, plain clothes. There was talk about me going, because I knew one of the sergeants, I'm not going to mention their name, there was talk of me going to this task force.
Yeah.
But I think it had a previous, before it was called the Gun Trace Task Force, I believe it was called something else. And I'm not going to mention the name.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I don't.
No, not at all.
I'm just
not
telling
at all.
the general story. So I was actually proposed at one point, asked if I wanted to work with these guys. Because I had a supervisor that was having problems with his wife, and she threw him out, and he came to live with me for a couple months. You know, I let him stay at my place in my apartment, and he was connected to this task force.
Yeah.
But this guy, I put parts of it in my book, was bananas.
Yeah.
This guy was bananas, absolutely bananas. And I was like, nah, bro, I'm good. I'll stay in patrol for a bit. I'm good.
And
Because,
thank God you didn't,
Yeah.
because, you know, I mean, I think he's serving like a 25 year friggin' sentence right now in FCI Milan, I think, up in Michigan. You know, he's not going to get out till 2037, which is crazy. But so you were saying the guy was bonkers, he was bananas. So he was the one that led the force, the task force.
I'm not talking about Jenkins. I'm talking about another supervisor that I was friends with.
Yeah.
That was connected to all these guys.
That was connected to all those guys. Yeah.
Off the charts, bro.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I can't fuck with this, bro. I can't. So I'm a street kid. I'm a hard-nosed guy.
Yeah.
I'm a tough dude, man. That's all I'm going to say. BS was out of control, the things I was hearing. It was never confirmed, but you would hear things here and there, and you didn't believe it, but you didn't want to be involved in it. And then later on, it all came out. And I know what would have happened. You said, thank God you weren't in there. And you're right, because I'll tell you what happened. I know myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to do that shit, and I would have wound up fighting them, and something would have happened, and I would have been in trouble, because I can't sit around planting guns on people, drugs on people. I can't. That would have never flown. Never could I have done something like that. I would never.
No.
And
no, because you're an honest cop. You know, you're an honest cop.
Right.
You signed up for a job to do it. And look, there's enough criminals in the world where you don't have to be planting drugs and guns. There's enough criminals out there that have guns and drugs on the street, you know? You don't need to plant them all, you know? And
so many.
You know, it's just, I was just thinking of that because I was like Baltimore and I was like Wayne Jenkins because I saw that. I think it was on HBO or one of those. So I was just wondering.
We Own the City? I
Yeah,
think
We Own the City.
right?
Yeah. So you must have, you must have heard some stories. We're not going to get into it because that's just, something different. But, what was some of the things, in this, is going off the title of the book? What was bad about the
Things like that, brother.
Yeah.
Things like that. People getting, just for example, in the hiring process, seeing things like one guy who's a model applicant and couldn't get on the job for some dumbass shit, like the smallest of infractions. Next to nothing, not a crime. Somebody might have said something about him when he was younger. Next thing you know, somebody with 2 felonies or 2 arrests is getting hired because their family member is friends with the police chief or the commissioner or bullshit
or a politician
like that.
or yeah.
Yeah, it's complete utter bullshit. And then the corruption that you're talking about, the actual crimes, like you mentioned the name Jenkins, my ex-partner, things like that. It's not good. It's not good.
No, and especially where you're sworn to serve and protect. When you're corrupt and you're doing things like that and you're a cop, it takes the scales of justice, right? It turns it in the in the wrong direction of where we have some cases going on now in Massachusetts. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a cop. Well, ex-cop Michael Proctor was his name, and there was a murder that happened out here where they pinned it on a girl, Karen Reed, and they said she hit her boyfriend at the time with the car, and evidence was planted. She was found not guilty.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did read and see about yes.
And all the cops now are retired, and Michael Proctor was fighting to get his job back, and he just dropped his appeal because they went back to 2013 of old text messages and all that. And it's just like growing up in the city of Boston, one of the biggest things is, and you probably too in New York City, you either become a cop, a firefighter, you join the you join the local union, you work for the city, or you become a criminal,
Right. Well, that's Departed, right?
Yeah, The Departed. Yeah.
That's pretty much the premise of his backstory, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'll tell you a funny story about The Departed, right? I don't know if Jack Nicholson, right? Jack Nicholson's one of the best, and I was on the set.
I love him.
He's the best.
I love him.
He's one of the nicest guys I ever met. I was on the set of The Departed in South Boston, and I got to meet him when he shot one of the scenes. And when I tell you that Jack Nicholson, right, we're in the middle of the South Boston projects, Old Harbor projects in South Boston where my mother came from. And Jack Nicholson literally got out of his car. There was probably 250 people. And when I tell you Jack Nicholson asked one thing, he said, please just don't encroach my personal space. He goes, I'll take a photo and sign everyone's autograph. And I won't leave until everybody gets an autograph and a photo. And when I tell you he stayed for almost 2 hours and signed everyone's autograph and took a photo with everybody, he was the best. And he shot the shit awesome. And was making fun of people and just, he was a regular guy, but he never forgot where he came from. It was one of the best, remembrances for me of people that I've met, Hollywood stars, basketball players, a little bit of everybody, but he was the best. Jack Nicholson was unbelievable.
I'm really into Hollywood, not the politics, but Hollywood per se, the movies and shows. Yeah. And I think still to this day, A Few Good Men, his role as he was a colonel, I believe.
Yeah.
The best acting I've seen in my entire life. He's amazing.
The best.
He's amazing.
When we were, like I said, when I was on the set, someone said to him, Jack, you can't handle the truth. And he looked right at the girl and said, I am the truth. And it was the best, Yeah, he was just the best, awesome. One of the night, and like I said, he's one of the most iconic guys up there with De Niro and, Al Pacino. But when I saw him for 2 hours sign everyone's autograph and take a photo, I was like, this guy's legit. He doesn't forget where he comes from, and he's one of the nicest guys I ever met.
That's awesome.
So we're gonna get on to one more thing. So I think we discussed it, but in because I was going off the book, what was good about the job, what was bad, and what or who was corrupt. And I know we've already talked about that. I know you talked about nepotism, and I know you talked about people being hired, that's the politicians or the chief's, nephew or son-in-law over people that deserve the job. Do you think that's, if you eliminated nepotism, if you eliminated favoritism, if you eliminated all that, do you think that police forces around the country would be better off? I think so.
I think they'd be much better off.
Yeah.
I think what needs to happen is they need to legitimately hire better people. They
and not just hire
better people. Not just hire because somebody's connected, or not just hire because it's a female. Let's be honest. I'm going to speak honestly. It's because it's a quota. it's a minority. You need to pick the best candidate.
The best of the best.
And unfortunately for some people, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But that's how you make your country better. That's how you make where you live better. That's how you make. Not everybody is going to be, a doctor, a lawyer, a cop. Whatever you are, just be the best you are at it. But it doesn't mean that the military has to be staffed with certain people to meet a quota.
Yeah.
The police doesn't have to be staffed with certain people to meet a quota. The fire department doesn't have to be staffed with certain people to meet a quota. Pick the best candidate. You see a guy that, has XYZ on his resume, that's who you should be picking, bro.
No doubt about it. Look, one of the things I would say, right, is think about it this way, right? If you're a citizen and you're paying taxes, right, and you live in the city of Boston or you live in New York City, you would say to yourself, hey, I want the best of the best, right, for New York City. I want the best of the best cops for Boston. So when you go through the candidates, right, if this guy scores 100, this guy scores 99, how are you taking someone that scored a 76 over a guy that scored a 95?
You know why.
You know?
You know exactly why, 100%.
And that becomes one of the things where we need to stop going away from, we need to get away from, we need to hire because they're this, or we need to hire because what we need to hire is the best of the best. At my job, we just went through some hiring, me and the other union guy in the company, and we picked the top best 8 candidates for the job. And when we gave it to the company, we said to them, hey, we can live with these 8 people, right? We picked, and if they're shit bums, you can come back and you can yell at us and you can be mad at us because we hired them, but we believe these are the best 8 for the job. And if you're in law enforcement, if you're a firefighter, EMTs, or any job, why aren't we taking the best of the best?
Exactly.
It's a no-brainer.
Exactly.
It's a
Exactly.
no-brainer. And I got just a couple more questions, and then
you ask me anything you want, Jimmy.
And I'm in. What do you miss most about the job?
What I miss most about the job, I miss being a young 20-something-year-old dude running around the street thinking I was making a difference, cleaning up the neighborhood, working 3 to 11 at times, and running around the block to the power plant, which was high-end restaurants, bars inside the city, and meeting up with my friends. I miss the youth, man. I miss the excitement. I miss that. There's certain things in life you can never experience again. You never can generate that excitement again.
Yeah.
Like, people look for things that, like skydiving, like this, like that. For me, there's never going to be anything like responding lights and sirens to an emergency shooting, or walking a foot beat in East Baltimore, or, there's nothing even close, because any second you don't know what the hell's going to happen.
But you're just waiting for it though, because one of the things, like you just said, right? So take us through, like you just said, like lights and sirens, right? What is, say for instance, if you can remember a call that you got, right, that sticks in your head that you can remember, right? Lights and sirens, you get the call over the radio, say there was a shooting or what? What's going through your head?
So it really, God, I'm sorry, Jimmy. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries at all. Well, like, what's going through your head? Say, I mean, you've probably responded to numerous shootings down there, right?
100%.
So what's going through your head when you get to a shooting call? Are you looking for the shooter? Are you on edge because the shooter may be around the corner? Like, what's going through your head as you're going to the call?
In police work, we call it a totality of the circumstance, situation, the entire totality.
Okay.
When I was working in Baltimore and we got a shots fired call, I was pretty sure that was a shots fired call. I knew, especially if we got multiple, I knew, because that's Baltimore.
Yeah.
They shoot off, they fire you off all the time. New Year's Eve, they're firing off the rooftops just for kicks and giggles. So there's a 99% chance that's a legitimate shooting call, right? So you're getting ready, you're getting prepared. How am I going to park this car on what angle? Where am I going to get out? What am I going to do? Am I going to provide emergency treatment for this guy? Am I going to secure the scene? Who's the first responder? You're thinking about all these things, because in your mind, this is legit. And I remember a call I got, which was a little different. When I transferred out, I was working in Montgomery County, Maryland, and I was working in Bethesda. Now, you went from crime-infested, big city, to suburbia, rich, suburbs. And we got a shots fired one time. And we're like, yeah, right, bullshit. This is fireworks. Bullshit. And we're taking our time. We're thinking nothing of it, so to speak. Then another call comes out. Shots fired by another, not the same person, another person. And now we're like, okay, listen, this is 2 independent callers. Something's up. There's a good chance something's going on. Then you get a third. And we're like, okay, this is legit. So lights and sirens, all these calls come in like seconds within each other, right?
Yeah.
So now we're flying to the call. And at first I'm like, nah, this is a bullshit call. By the third call, I'm like, no, this is probably legit. So when we get there, there's a 18-year-old high school student. It's a little graphic. I mean, it's okay for your audience?
Yes.
18-year-old high school student laying on his shoulder, on his left shoulder, if I remember correctly, like towards his back, and a hole in his head. His brain's blown out. And, all over the sidewalk in the street.
Yeah.
And that never bothered me, the gore. That never bothered me. But what bothered me is seeing this young kid sitting there, laying there like that, dead.
Dead, yeah.
And I remember his parents were like, "You help him, give him aid." And I'm looking at my partner and I'm like, he's gone. Like,
there's nothing.
we're not he's done. Like,
yeah.
And I didn't really know how to say it to them. His parents were unconsolable. And I remember that like it was yesterday. And obviously he died. He was dead. And it was over a bullshit drug deal. The kids from the county, some high school kids wanted to get some dope. And they called some DC heavy hitters. And I think they didn't pay. And, you don't fuck around. People don't realize. That's what I'm saying. There's Long Island, there's Massapequa, and then there's Baltimore.
Yeah.
There's Bethesda and Potomac, and then there's DC.
DC,
It's the way it is. And,
and those kids had no clue, obviously, doing that, ripping people off, and then that they don't think that anything's going to happen to them,
I don't remember exactly how it went down because it wasn't my case. But from what I remember was like 20 years ago. But from what I remember, it was a drug deal gone bad. So I'm thinking it was probably some DC guy. And I think I remember one of the officers just telling me that. But whoever it was, there's bad people everywhere. So you could live literally in the best parts of Long Island. You can live in the best parts of Maryland, anywhere, California. Doesn't matter. Your state. There's bad dudes exist everywhere.
Exactly.
I just remember that call more so than a lot of the calls in Baltimore. Yeah, because it was almost unbelievable that it went down in this neighborhood that way.
Yeah.
Like we were used to people getting blown away in Baltimore. Every night there's a shooting. It's legit. You get that call, okay, let's go, another one.
Yeah.
In an area like that, I couldn't believe it. Over some bullshit marijuana or whatever it was.
Yeah. And a young kid loses his life. And like you said, you go from Baltimore where, not that it's expected, but that's what happens there. Then you go to Bethesda where you're like, yeah, it's just probably fireworks. Then you get a second, then you get a third call and you're saying, all right, something's going on, and then you pull up and here's the kid dead, shot in the head. And, it must be like night and day, because Bethesda, you don't think anything like that happens there. But like you said, there are bad people everywhere,
Right. And like you said, it's expected in Baltimore. You don't expect it here.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a little shocking. You're like, what the hell just happened here?
And it's tough because, when you as a kid growing up in the city, you like I said, you saw it all, but then you go to Baltimore and then you're in Bethesda, you're seeing a little bit of policing everywhere, right? The hardest part becomes for you, I think, is I can tell just in your tone of voice and your, how you talk about the job that I think, the law enforcement and the job sort of let you down, if you understand what I'm saying.
It did.
Did.
Yeah. In
a way, because here you are going in thinking that, hey, everybody's just like me. Everybody's honest. We're good. Everything's going to be great. It's going to be a great job. And then you go in and you see the good, the bad, and the corrupt, and unfortunately for some of us, they go along with the corruption. They go along with the bad, but someone like you, an honest guy, you're not going along with that, because if you wanted to go along with that, you would have just stayed in New York and you would have joined your buddies and you would have joined the, friends of ours and done that,
Exactly.
Again, people, everybody, you can go out. The book is called A Life in Law Enforcement, a Police Memoir, The Good, the Bad, the Corrupt, and you can get it at Amazon.com. You can get it at bookbaby.com. Thomas, it's been awesome. It's been unbelievable to talk to you. And I got one last question for you, right? And this is one that I'm doing for season 2. It's the last question everybody's going to get, and it's going to be good to hear your answer. If you could change one thing in the world to make it a better place for all of us, what would you change?
If I could change one thing in the world?
One thing in the world, or in the United States, if you could change one thing.
Again, I don't know how many of your listeners are going to resonate with this. How much this is going to resonate with your listeners, but absolutely believe that we need religion, organized religion, faith, Christ, Christianity, and the family back in America.
In America.
I definitely believe that. Without God, I'm not.
And that's, I think that message will resonate with a lot of people because Thomas, on this season, right? I got people coming in. I have a lady, right, who is an author. I spoke with her last night. Isik is her name, and she wrote a book about God and what happened with her. She was diagnosed with a rare brain condition. She was basically given no chance of survival, and she prayed to God and did this and a lot of couple things, her faith was strong and she's still here to this day, So I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing God and bringing Christianity and bringing faith back into, the United States. I think with faith, it makes us a lot more stronger as a country, having faith, and that's just not faith in God. That's faith in our government, faith in our police, departments, faith in our neighbors. Faith in humanity, because I think we've lost that. I think we've lost touch with God. And I think a lot of people only tend to pray when, hey, you know what? I'm sick. I'm going to pray. But if you get up every day and you're alive and you say, hey, thanks, God, or whatever you believe in, it gives you a purpose in life. Because
I agree.
Every day we wake up is a blessing. What do they say? It's, past and present, what's happened in the past is gone and what's in the present, live in the present because it's a present from God. Something like that is a saying.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things, you probably came from a big religious family with your parents being Italian. My mom and dad were Irish Catholic, same here. I went to first through fifth grade. I went to Catholic school. I was lucky enough I went to private school for my whole education. I was lucky enough. There was 7 of us growing up. My dad did what he could, did the best that he could with everything that, but all of us went to private school, Catholic school growing up. I went first through fifth.
I went to private Catholic school for 9 years and they threw my ass out.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that if you went to Catholic school because I figured, I was lucky enough. I went first through fifth and then I went to another private school, 6th through the 8th. Here's the funny thing, Thomas. I went to school on an island from 6th grade to 8th grade. They sent me on a boat to school.
Really?
5 days a week. I took a boat at 7:30 in the morning. I got home at 5:30 in the afternoon. I took a boat to school.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough. I was very privileged. My dad and my mom were very, very salt of the earth people. They're no longer with us. Thank God to them that, my mom and dad were who they were because I got a Catholic education. It was almost, I graduated in 2003, I believe. It was almost $10,000 a year, $40,000. I don't even know what my father made. Never mind if he could afford sending me to Catholic school, but he believed in that. He believed in God. He believed in his faith. And I think that's a great thing that you said. We need to bring back faith. We need to bring back God. We need to bring back Christianity, and it gives people a purpose in life. It really does.
That's the most important thing for me, Jimmy. And God bless your parents. They're looking down and they're proud of what you're doing.
And I appreciate that. And you got anything, as we wrap up, like I said, you can get the book at Amazon. You can get the book at bookbaby.com. It's called A Life in Law Enforcement, a Police Memoir, The Good, the Bad, the Corrupt. The author is who just joined us, Thomas. I was gonna say.
Let me help you, Carchidi.
I was gonna say it the other way, the American way, Carchidi. Yeah, before we end it, I'm just gonna tell my listeners that this is a raw take. This is a raw take on law enforcement in America. His story, he lived it, and he's showing you. Like he said before, if you're thinking about law enforcement, go out and buy the book, see what it's really like. Because I can tell you right now, this isn't just happening in, one law enforcement department. This is nationwide, unfortunately. But it's great guys like you, Thomas, that went out and did the job and lived the job, And I know you had said, that you thought you were making a difference. I want you to know that you made a difference,
Thanks, man. Thank you so
did,
much.
And don't ever think that you didn't, right? Think of it. A young kid from Long Island going to Baltimore to become a cop. Who the hell in Baltimore signs up to become a Baltimore cop? Never mind a kid from Long Island, right?
Yeah.
And think about that. Don't ever think that you didn't change anybody, because there's probably kids down there that talk about you. There's probably, when this book, the book's out, people are reading it, and you're changing people's lives, changing people's perspective. You're a cancer survivor. You're a cop, law enforcement. And at the end of the day, you're a great son to your mom and dad. You're a great guy.
Jimmy, your kind words, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and you're a good man, and thank you so much. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for, like I said, all the great things you said about me.
Perfect. Thanks, Thomas. And, we'll definitely catch up. As we bring this conversation to a close, I want to take a moment to honor a man whose life has been defined by courage, integrity, and heart. Thomas Carchidi, author of A Life in Law Enforcement, The Good, the Bad, the Corrupt, has lived a story that not only reflects the realities of policing, but the human cost, the sacrifice, and the quiet strength behind the badge. A retired law enforcement officer, a cancer survivor, a black belt, an Italian-American who wears his heritage with pride. Thomas is the kind of man who ran toward the danger when the world was falling apart. He worked on the pile at 9/11, breathing in the smoke, the dust, the heartbreak, all because helping others was never a choice but a calling. Thomas reminds us that being a good cop isn't about perfection. It's about heart, service, and standing up when others sit down. It's about holding on to your humanity when the world tries to take it from you. And he did that every single day. Thomas, thank you for your courage, your honesty, your sacrifice, and your willingness to share your story so others can understand the weight of the uniform. You didn't just serve, you gave. And for that, we honor you, we respect you, and we thank you. Thank you for coming, Thomas. Peace and love, Uncle Jimmy, out.